us tonight on another episode of The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters, and I'm so glad you've decided to tune in for another fabulous little half hour where we're going to talk all things motorsports. And believe me, there's a lot to get to. Obviously, we just crowned 3 new NASCAR champions across the Cup, Xfinity, and Truck Series. And there's a lot of fallout and a lot of mixed feelings amongst NASCAR fans, drivers, competitors, and even within NASCAR about how all of that kind of played out. And that's what we're really going to be talking about today after the news segment. So stay tuned for that. You won't want to miss a single moment of that because we are going to break down everything that happened over the past weekend in NASCAR and really just kind of have a little fireside chat on exactly what's going on. And NASCAR is really kind of at a crossroads right now. And we're going to discuss that as we wait and see what happens, whether or not we are indeed going to see a new points championship maybe next year. But before we go ahead and get into all that, make sure if you like this show, go ahead and follow me on social media. You can do so by looking up at rpeeters33. That's RPEETERS 33, and then make sure you've got that WTHR Plus app installed on your smart TV because you won't want to miss a single episode of the Racing Report as we're taking you all the way through the off-season of NASCAR and the off-season for most other motorsports, as we've got a couple of other series that are set to wrap up their championships coming up later this month and early next month. So we're going to make sure to talk about all of that. But let's go ahead and jump right on into the news segment of the show. We've got a lot to going on, and we'll start off with open-wheel news today, starting in the world of Formula One. And this is pretty important to talk about specifically. The FIA has been summoned to a hearing at a French court after the former presidential candidate Laura Villers began legal action over, quote, serious democratic failings relating to the election process. Now, if you're not following this is okay. That's okay. It's been a little bit of a weird thing to follow. Obviously, Mohammed bin Sulayem, he is up for re-election coming up as the president of the FIA, which is the governing body for world motorsport. And he's essentially running unopposed this year because many other candidates could not get on the ballot. And there's a reason for that. Now, here's what's going on here. Former candidate Tim Mayer has criticized this process of becoming a candidate because it requires prospective vice presidents to come from a list of members approved from the World Motorsport Council, making it almost impossible to challenge the incumbent president, Mohammed bin Sulayem. Additionally, the presidential list must feature candidates from the FIA's 6 global regions. But this year's list only included one person, and that was from South Africa, Fabiana Ecclestone. She's already a member of Ben Sulayem's team. Now, the judicial court in Paris has authorized Villers to the summon the FIA for a hearing beginning on November 10th. So coming up here next week, we might know what is going on with that hearing. We might hear something new there. But as a result of that, it's very interesting because, again, those elections were supposed to be held coming up here next month. Not really happening at all because Ben Sulayem is running unopposed. But now we've got some legal battles regarding his unopposed campaign, so we'll have to see what happens there. Though I don't expect that to delay anything. I would expect Mohammed bin Sulayem to be reelected as the FIA president to serve another term. Meanwhile, in Formula One, let's talk about this. This is very interesting. A little bit of Formula One / Super Formula news. Don't really see that very often. But apparently, Jack Doohan is heading to Super Formula with Kondo Racing next season. That's the rumor. That's the hot rumor. Again, this has not been formally confirmed, but this is indeed the hot rumor that Jack Doohan could be on his way to Super Formula, as Alpine appears poised to re-sign Franco Colapinto to another season with that team. Obviously, remember Franco Colapinto, he replaced Jack Doohan after 5 races to start at the start of this Formula One season. And now it looks like Alpine has been satisfied, or at least to the best of, I think, whatever they could get. And so they are keen, apparently, on offering Colapinto another contract. So we'll have to see where that goes. And we'll also have to wait and see when Jack Doohan is confirmed for a Super Formula seat beginning next season. Remember, the Super Formula Championship has just 3 rounds left, not 1 round, but 3 races. Because of the postponement at Fuji, they're going to be racing a triple header coming up here in, I believe, a handful of weeks November 22nd to 23rd at Suzuka. That's going to make up for that rained out race. So they're going to have 3 races to finish off the season in one racetrack. So that's definitely going to be something you're going to want to tune in for if you have the means. So. All right, getting out of the Formula One world and coming over back here stateside into the world of IndyCar, Kyle Kirkwood has signed a multi-year contract extension with Andretti. Now, his contract was set to expire after 2026, but now with this contract extension, it's likely he'll stay with Andretti for the indefinite future. So some very good news there for Kyle Kirkwood fans. He's not going anywhere, and you don't have to worry about him being potentially in a contract year coming up here next year. Meanwhile, AJ Foyt Racing has signed Kyle Collette to drive the team's number 4 Chevrolet full-time in next season's IndyCar campaign. He'll be replacing David Malukas, who, as you might know, went to Team Penske to replace Will Power, who's also going to be Kyle Kirkwood's teammate next year at Andretti as he replaces Colton Herta, who goes to race for High-Tech in Formula 2 next year. Now, again, Collette is going to have backing from Brazilian logistics company Combitrans Amazonia. I'm probably butchering that because I don't speak any Portuguese. I actually speak more Spanish than Portuguese, and believe me, as similar as they are, they're also very, very different languages. So there's that, and that's going to be for full-time, so he's going to have the same sponsor. It's going to be a full-time sponsor on there, same company that has sponsored him basically throughout the majority of his racing career, especially last season in Indy Next, where he finished runner-up to champion Dennis Hauger. So now we know Hauger, he's going to be racing for Dale Coyne next season, and then we're going to have Kyle Collette racing for AJ Foyt. So the 2 heavy hitters in Indy Next last season are going to be racing for Rookie of the Year honors in IndyCar coming up next season. So I'm very excited to see that. That's going to be really cool. So congratulations to Collette, obviously, getting that run. And honestly, I got to say, a lot of people might look at him and say, is this deserved? I think it is. I've watched Kyle Collette's career kind of from the beginning. I watched him in Formula Renault Euro Cup, kind of watched him in Formula 3 as well. Formula 3 didn't necessarily go as well as that Formula Euro Cup season did back then in 2020, but I will say the last 2 seasons in Indy Next, he has been impressive. He's been winning races. He's finished in a lot of podiums, so I'm very curious to see how he does. He'll be paired with Santino Ferrucci next year, which should be a very interesting pairing to see how that goes for AJ Foyt Racing. But for now, congratulations to Kyle Collette, and one more silly season domino falls in the IndyCar paddock. Meanwhile, hey, let's talk about this. Racer is reporting that IndyCar will form an independent officiating board that will feature a free 3-person team and function with autonomy over race control and technical officials. Now, according to the Racer.com article, it appears as though they will still in some way communicate with Penske Entertainment, which is to be expected, but it's definitely better than having Penske Entertainment directly involved in anything like that. So we've got an independent officiating board. And again, it's going to work with, like I said, technical officials in addition to race control. So hopefully we shouldn't have as much fallout and as much controversy if there's, say, a similar situation to the attenuator scandal that happened earlier in May. So definitely gotta check that out. Definitely will be interesting to see how this all goes and what the developments are for that. Finally, in the world of IndyCar, let's talk about this. We have covered this Alex Palou versus McLaren trial as it has been going on, but we heard closing arguments this week in that trial. Now, McLaren contends in its closing arguments that it is owed $19.5 million, while Palou's defense team argued it did not know any damages to McLaren. And there is currently no timetable on when this decision will be made. We have no idea when a judge will rule on this in London Superior Court. We have no idea whatsoever what is going to come out of this right now, but we do know that the two sides have made their formal closing arguments, and so we'll have to just see where we go from there and what happens. Apparently, according to the rumors, we could not hear a decision until early next year in January. We'll just have to keep tabs on that and see what happens there, because I'll be very curious to see if McLaren is contending that Palou owes them $19.5 million. That's quite a big number and not exactly going to be something that Palou or Chip Ganassi Racing is going to want to pay. So we'll have to see what, again, comes out of there. And moving back on into more open wheel news. This is actually one of the coolest things that we've got to know. So the Formula E season is literally a month away. So it's set to start on December 6th in Sao Paulo. Now, they've been using this Gen 3 Evo chassis for the past season or two. And now Formula E has unveiled its new Gen 4 chassis. And let me just say something. This chassis looks amazing. This car looks incredible. Now, what I want, if you have any interest in Formula E, because again, I recognize people might not like electric car racing. It's not for them. They prefer their cars to be loud. I get it. 100% understand. No judgment from me. The only thing I will say is if you get a chance and you really kind of want to see what this car is going to look like speed-wise, because we've seen pictures of this car now, it looks pretty cool. It looks a lot more sleek, looks a lot less wide. They finally got a rear wing back on the car. It's going to have high downforce, low downforce setups, which is all going to be great. But check out Formula E on Instagram because they posted a flyby of a test of this Gen 4 car. And let me tell you something, that might be the fastest electric car I've seen outside of the Goodwood Festival of Speed when Max Chilton took that McMurdy air-powered electric car up the hill climb for an insane amount of time. This Formula E car is stupid fast, and I'll tell you something here. Here are some of the specs of this car. So number one, the chassis is going to have 600 kilowatts of power available. Now, that is the equivalent of 815 horsepower. If that number sounds interesting to you, it's actually more than the upcoming NASCAR Cup cars will have. So we're talking about an electric race car that has more horsepower than a current gen NASCAR Cup Series car. Remember, the Cup Series, they're going 750 horsepower and have been running 550 horsepower. Of course, that 750 horsepower is not going to be at all tracks, but insane to think 815 horsepower is going to be capable of powering these Formula E cars. And in addition to that, not only is the car fast, but then obviously it being electric, sustainability is a big point of emphasis for Formula E. Series officials say this new chassis is going to construction is going to use 100% recyclable materials. So this car is going to be recyclable or made out of recyclable materials, which is huge when we talk about sustainability in motorsports. This is a big deal. Now, some of the breakdowns, and we mentioned 600 kilowatts of power available. Now, it's important to recognize that that is in attack mode only. The regular race of this car, the car is going to race primarily using 450 kilowatts, which is still more than they're racing now. But the peak race power of 600 kilowatts that's going to be available under attack mode is huge. Additionally, you're going to have, and I know this is going to sound a little bit confusing, but we're talking about 700 kilowatts for regenerative braking. So when a car, obviously Formula E, and with a lot of these hybrids, especially in Formula One and in sports cars, a lot of the ways that they get more power and charge the hybrid is under braking. So now we're going to see 700 kilowatts regenerative braking under these Formula E cars, and you're going to have a race energy capacity with that generative braking up to 55 kilowatt hours. So I know it's a lot of numbers, but just trust me when I say this car is fast. For an electric vehicle, this car is very fast, very powerful, and I'm going to be very excited. Now keep in mind, this upcoming season in Formula E, they're still going to be using the Gen 3 Evo. This car is now going to set to debut at the beginning of the 2026 to 2027 season. So that would be the next season of Formula E. So not this season, but next season, we will be seeing some very, very fast race cars. And let me tell you something. I understand, again, I get it. I understand wanting to hear a loud engine sound. But honestly, when I saw that flyby, I was like, ooh, wow, that's almost like a turbine. It sounds like a turbine. And if you've ever been to a vintage race or something and you've heard, or maybe heck, you went to a race when these were still being raced competitively, and you've heard maybe the Andy Granatelli turbine engine that raced at the Indianapolis 500 in the late 60s, early 70s, very similar sound. albeit a lot faster, and it's cool. It's really definitely something to see. Like I said, if you want to see that flyby, check out Formula E's Instagram account, and there's plenty of pictures as well if you want to take a look at some of these images that are floating around. All right, we've talked too much about that. We've got to take our first real quick break here of the show, and when we come back, we're going to cover news from the world of Supercars and NASCAR, and there's a lot of it. Lots of Supercars silly season news, not so much NASCAR news, but still enough to talk about. So don't go anywhere. You are watching The Racing Report. And we're back to The Racing Report. Thanks so much for sticking with us through that break. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the world news in the world of Supercars. Big news dropped over the past week. Dick Johnson Racing says it will not renew Will Davison's contract and will replace him next season with 18-year-old Super 2 points leader Rylan Gray. Now, Davison, who's been in the series for almost 20 years now, has reportedly reached out to Blanchard Racing Team about its number 3 Ford Mustang, which currently is being driven by Aaron Cameron, who does not currently have a contract with the team next season. However, as of right now, nothing has been announced, and if I imagine Davison can't get that Blanchard Racing Team ride from Aaron Cameron, I imagine I'll have to settle for some sort of co-driver role, though that co-driver role will not be with Dick Johnson Racing. So just important to that, Brody Kostecki is going to have a new teammate next season in Rylan Gray. And that's not it. There's still lots more Supercars silly season news to know. Dale Wood is not going to return to Grove Racing as a co-driver for next season. That partnership has come to an end. Meanwhile, Jackson Evans will join Walkinshaw Andretti United in a co-driver role beginning next season. Remember, he lost his ride with Brad Jones Racing after sponsor SCT Logistics took themselves to AAA Racing to sponsor a rookie and a third team in Jackson Walls. So that's important to know there. You're going to have Brock Feeney, Will Brown. They're going to have Jackson Walls on their team as a teammate to them, and he will be sponsored by SCT Logistics, which has been sponsoring the Brad Jones Racing entry for the past several seasons, especially with Jack Smith and now most recently with Jackson Evans. But Evans leaving that team, joining Walkinshaw Andretti instead as a co-driver. Now, again, more Supercars silly season news to discuss. Jaden Ojeda is going to replace Richie Stanaway. We talked last week. Richie Stanaway was essentially let go from Prema Air Racing, and now we know that Jaden Ojeda will be moving up full-time next season with Prema Air Racing. So good news for him. Ojeda's definitely been getting there close, but no cigar on getting a full-time ride, but now it looks like he's finally got one. And then finally, Matt Stone Racing has confirmed Zach Bates will replace the retiring Nick Percat for next season, and he will pair alongside also newcomer Jack LeBrock. So some big-time moves in the world of Supercars coming up here. Again, we've got couple of weeks until the Sandown 500 and then the Adelaide Grand Final. So the Supercar season getting close to an end. And again, we're in their little playoff system that they call the finals. And speaking of playoffs, unfortunately, let's talk about NASCAR news here real quick, because this is interesting news that happened over the past week, especially in the aftermath of the championship weekend. NASCAR has adjusted the maximum amount of races Cup drivers can race in lower divisions. Cup drivers can now race up to 10 races in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, formerly known as the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and up to 8 races in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Now, this is for Cup drivers with 3 or more years of experience in that series. So very important to note there. And additionally, NASCAR has also changed the minimum age requirement for the NASCAR Xfinity Series, or NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. They've dropped that now to 17, but only for tracks 1.25 miles or less. So not Nashville. Anything shorter than Nashville, though, you could be 17 and race in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series beginning next year. So that's some changes. Definitely some mixed reviews on that. A lot of people seem to like Cup drivers not being able to run as many Xfinity and Truck Series races, but now NASCAR has opened up that just a little bit, not by very much, but just a little bit. So maybe we could see Kyle Busch run some more races, Kyle Larson run some more races, and who knows who else might want to get down there. Apparently, a man by the name of Jimmy Johnson has been mulling over maybe making a couple of Truck Series starts beginning next season. Who knows? And speaking of Jimmy Johnson, one start we do know that he's going to make is he's going to race at the San Diego Street Race coming up next summer. Now, that's a big deal for Jimmy Johnson because, remember, he grew up not far away from San Diego in the town of El Cajon in California. So for him, this is a huge deal. This is a home race. This is probably the closest he's ever going to be able to race in front of his friends and family. So this is a big deal for him, and he's going to have sponsorship from Carvana. Obviously, he's been his sponsor since he made that switch to IndyCar in 2021. And so now Jimmy Johnson getting a chance to race in front of his hometown crowd at the Coronado Naval Base down there in San Diego. So some big news there. On the heels of his Championship 4 appearance, Tyler Ankrum will return to McAnally Hilgeman Racing next season in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. So some news there. And then Parker Retzlaff announced that he will not return to Alpha Prime Racing next season, but says his future plans will be announced at a later date. So not sure where Retzlaff's going to land next year as of right now, but he says those plans are coming later. And then let's talk about this real quick. We got to get through this as quickly as we can. We do have some lawsuit news. Obviously, it's a bit of a weird week with NASCAR, the championship happening this past weekend, the awards ceremony also happening. I believe that was on Tuesday. You know, lots of things happening, and we also got some lawsuit news. So, 2311 Racing and FRM, Front Row Motorsports, have announced that they are dropping part of their complaint against NASCAR. Now, the two teams announced saying they're not going to go after them in Section 1 antitrust claims, but instead they're going to focus on their Section 2 antitrust claims. This is a Sherman Antitrust Act again. And to kind of just summarize it a little bit, Judge Kenneth Bell, who's overseeing this whole case, ruled earlier this week that NASCAR does indeed have a monopoly over premier stock car racing. So that is a very big development in this case, and that's part of the reason why 2311 and FRM have opted to drop this case, because now this is a much easier way to win, since the judge has now ruled that, yeah, NASCAR kind of does have a monopoly in premier stock car racing. It's important to note the language there is not just stock car racing. It's premier stock car racing, essentially meaning, like, yes, they could go to something like the Cars Tour, but again, that's not premier stock car racing like on the same level of, say, IndyCar or Formula One is in open wheel. So that's a big distinction to make in this case. And as this continues, again, we are now less than a month away from the expected trial date. That's supposed to be December 1st. So unless a settlement is reached, which it doesn't seem likely given how the two teams that are suing NASCAR seemingly are preparing their case now, I'll be very curious to see what ends up happening out of all of this. Obviously, it's been building since last season, and now we might finally get some sort of resolution, or something horribly bad could happen. I don't know, and we're going to find out together. So, again, like I said, keep it here for the Racing Report. Each and every week, we're going to have you updates every single time we get them regarding this NASCAR lawsuit, and you won't want to miss a single episode in order to stay up to date on the latest developments in this case. Finally, let's go ahead and talk about something big. The CW says that the 2025 NASCAR Xfinity Series season was the most watched season of that series in 4 years. Now, what's impressive is through 33 races, the NASCAR Xfinity Series averaged 1,034,000 viewers, according to Nielsen, the Nielsen ratings. That is huge. To average over 1 million viewers for your second-tier division in the year of our Lord 2025, when almost nobody is watching live linear television anymore, that is a huge, huge number that the CW should be very proud of, NASCAR should be very proud of, especially with getting this deal done to get every single NASCAR Xfinity Series race available on over-the-air television. You don't need to buy anything other than the TV and the antenna, and just hope that your antenna is going to pick up a local CW affiliate, which, again, I get is not necessarily as easy as some make it seem to be, but far easier than signing up with cable, paying for the cable package, and trying to figure out how to watch the races there. Again, very big developments there. So congratulations to the CW. They had a great season, an inaugural season broadcasting NASCAR, and it's definitely shown now with a huge ratings increase year over year. That is it for this week's NASCAR news, and that's this week's Supercars news. Like I said, when we come back, we're going to go ahead and talk about some of the things that happened over the past week, and we're going to just kind of break down the NASCAR Championship results here a little bit. So don't go anywhere. You are watching The Racing Report. And welcome back to The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters. Thanks so much for sticking with us through that break. Let's go ahead and talk about the NASCAR Championship Weekend. Obviously, very polarizing opinions from pretty much everybody you're going to talk to. Starting off in the Truck Series, we had a near disaster moment when a late race restart combined with a poor pit stop almost doomed Corey Haim's championship, but instead he did something insane, which was taking it 7, almost 8 wide going into turn 1, 2 at Phoenix. I don't really know what that's considered anymore, but going in an overtime and then passing championship rival Ty Majeski on the final lap to win his first NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series C race and extend the record from 11 race victories in one season to 12 with his win at Phoenix. Obviously the rightful champion there, no doubt about it in everybody's mind. And we all were kind of hoping after that race that maybe, hopefully, surely the same thing will happen in the Xfinity race. Surely the most deserving driver, the driver who's won more than anybody else, the driver who's led every single possible statistical category, surely will win the title. No, didn't happen. Jesse Love, better tires, passed Connor Zilisch late in the race, drove away, won his first Xfinity Series championship while Connor Zilisch had to settle for third and finishing second in the championship despite literally dominating, like I said, in almost every possible category you could dominate in. He's not the champion. He's not. And that is stinging a lot of people still today. Obviously, don't want to take anything away from Jesse Love. Great job executing when he needed to, getting it down to the last very possible moment to take that championship away and get it for himself. Again, nothing against him, but you kind of wonder, is this format fair? And all those questions were boiling and getting to a boiling point as of Saturday night. And we go into Sunday, and it's a lot of the same questions. How is this championship going to play out? Are we going to see one driver dominate the entire race and win and be claimed the champion? Or are we going to see, like we've seen the last 2 races, a late race overtime, at least one of the last 2 races, at least the truck race, a late race overtime restart determine who wins the title? And unfortunately, it was that. We had Denny Hamlin winning both stages, leading over 200 of the 312 laps. And then not the best pit strategy call for 4 tires. When Kyle Larson took 2, Larson restarted a handful of rows in front of Hamlin, and Hamlin just couldn't pass him. Hamlin just couldn't get to Larson, just couldn't pass up and get to him. And Kyle Larson won his second NASCAR Cup Series championship, despite many maybe saying that was Denny's race. And Denny, again, was the sentimental favorite. Again, his father is terminally ill. He spoke very much about this over the course of the week leading up to the race, where he was like, look, man, this is going to be my father's last chance to see me win a championship. I want to get it for him. And you could just see after the race how much that devastated Denny Hamlin. Now, again, it's important to note that under a non-playoff format, Kyle Larson would have still won the title, having scored the most points. Now, if you go back to the Latford system, it's a little bit different. But under this current format, without the playoffs, Larson would be the champion regardless. But still, it stings. On the one hand, you would have preferred that maybe Larson had the championship locked up by the end of the second stage. On the other hand, maybe you would have preferred to see Hamlin rightfully get that race victory, even though maybe he wasn't the most deserving of champions. It would have been the most sentimental victory. The fact of the matter is here, I think everybody is just kind of, and maybe not everybody, but I think the majority of NASCAR fans are just tired. they're tired of watching this happen every single year, where a whole year's worth of work and effort and wins and whatever from a team and a driver's standpoint that goes into this, all being thrown away and out the window by variables out of their control when there's no time left to rebound. And I understand people could say, well, that's racing. And yes, it is. But also at the same time, how can a championship be determined based on a late race pit stop or an overtime restart? How can the entire season come down to what is essentially an excitement gimmick made to keep the fans happy so that we're not ending races under caution? Is there some sort of a middle ground NASCAR fans, drivers in the industry could reach? Possibly. Now, the hot rumor, obviously, is still that was probably the last time we're going to have a one-race winner-take-all championship in NASCAR. But even then, how do you repair everything that's happened over the past 11, 12 seasons under this format? How do you repair that? How do you go about repairing that and trying to get the fans that stopped watching because it was frustrating them too much to come back and watch NASCAR again? That's going to be the next big thing. Now, it appears, according to little nuggets dropped on the Dale Jr. download, that at least the O'Reilly Auto Parts and the Truck Series next season will likely do away with the playoffs and maybe the Cup Series as well, which leaves one of two options as being what NASCAR chooses: either a full 36-race championship or a 10-race chase, a return to the 10-race chase. Now, there could be some sort of other option in there, but it seems like right now those are our two options. And if you want my opinion, obviously I'm going to prefer the 36-race season, but I'm not going to necessarily balk at the 10-race chase, just given the fact that it's better than what we have now. And if NASCAR is determined to have a postseason of some kind, that is the far better compromise compared to what we have now, or even a 3-3-4 format, which appears less and less likely as the days go on. Either way, again, it's okay. If you had feelings about the NASCAR finale, I get it. You were not alone. I had feelings, as trying and might as I could be to be impartial. It's just hard. It's just hard when you see a sport do things that you just can't agree with or don't see as being right. But hopefully NASCAR and these internal discussions are maybe making a change to do something right that will make the fans, the drivers, the teams, the sponsors, and the TV partners, everybody happy, or at the very least make most of those people happy. And I think that would be the ideal situation. Now, we are over time so far this week, and that's, again, it's okay. Lots to talk about, lots to discuss, lots of things happening, and it's okay. Remember, it's just a sport, and I get it. But we've got other racing to talk about because there's still races coming up later on this week and this month and even into next month. Don't worry. Enjoy the off season while you can. There's still some races going on. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Enjoy your Christmas. Enjoy your holiday season. But then we've also got coming up this weekend the Formula One Sao Paulo Grand Prix from the wonderful Interlagos circuit. Now, keep in mind, though, if you're a YouTube TV subscriber like I am, you might have to come prepared with another way to watch this race this weekend because, again, there is currently a contract dispute between YouTube TV and Disney, which owns ESPN and ABC. I believe, and I don't want to say anything necessarily that's incorrect, you might be able to watch sessions with ESPN, an ESPN Plus subscription, and only an ESPN Plus subscription. But at this point, from what I've seen, I don't know that that's the case anymore. And it's going to come down to, I'm going to find out when the lights go out, probably. And if we have to have some sort of a backup plan, which is maybe an F1 TV subscription, a free trial of F1 TV, if they're even giving that out. I don't know if they're giving that out. But yeah, if you have YouTube TV, you're going to have to find some sort of alternate way to watch this weekend's F1 race, unless by the time this episode is posted, Disney and YouTube TV have worked out a deal that restores those channels. Hopefully that's happening because it's not been good with college football, and I'm nervous about how it might go for Formula One as well. But in other news, for a race that you could just go ahead and tune into if you have $7 laying around, is next weekend the Supercars Sandown 500 will be in action, and they're going to be, again, that'll be the it's the penultimate round before the Adelaide Grand Final. So we're going to cut off 3 more drivers from the finals before we get to their championship 4 drivers. Yeah. Anyway, Supercars definitely still don't want to miss it. I mean, it's Sandown. It's a great race. It's going to be 2 races over the course of a weekend. So definitely still worth tuning in, even if you maybe don't like the playoffs and even the Supercars version of the playoffs. But and then, hey, coming up here again after that in a couple of weeks, November 22nd through 23rd, Super Formula is going to have 3 races, like I mentioned earlier, at Suzuka. That's to make up for the postponed / canceled / rained out event that happened at Fuji last month. And so good deal there. That'll be the last 3 races at Suzuka. And again, the championship battle is still up in the air. I believe it's Shosu Boy's got about a 15 point gap, and then second and third are tied. So, hey, if you like season-long points, Super Formula is where it's at. And then, like I said, Formula E returns with its next season, December 6th, with the Sao Paulo E Prix. And you might be watching that and recognize, hey, that kind of looks familiar. I think IndyCar raced there, and you'd be correct. It's just a very different layout of the track, but still kind of the same exact little location that the Sao Paulo race in IndyCar that happened at the beginning of the previous decade was held, and now now Formula E's there. So, all right, like I said, we're overtime, big time this week. But hey, thank you guys so much for listening and watching this week. We really appreciate it. Make sure if you like this show, go ahead and follow me on social media. You can do so by looking up at rpeeters33. That's RPEETERS33. And then make sure you've got that WTHR Plus app installed on your smart TV so you get the latest episodes of the Racing Report each and every week. So for WTHR Plus, my name is Rob Peeters, and this has been the Racing Report.